All right, welcome everybody. Phew, it was so scary there, John.
I'm glad you're not a pilot. That's all I can say.
Why is that, John?
Because enough people have issues with flying. They don't need more.
The little panic there.
Yeah.
The button.
Yeah.
I'm fine. Okay. Anyway, so how are you? How's your thumb?
Thumb's healing up. I'm going to take this. I almost took it off last night against doctor's orders, but got to keep it on till Friday, despite an insane amount of itching underneath this thing.
AMA, huh?
Yeah.
Against medical advice?
Yeah.
Sure. Anyway, so we have a guest in the studio.
That's right. And he's fully indoctrinated into the weirdness of talkback already. So I'd like to welcome to the program. Actually, this is our first of what I hope is going to be a regular tradition where we bring in the political science department from the University of Montana.
Very cool.
To hang out with us for the show.
You actually brought another educated person to be in here with me, the uncultured slob.
That's right. They said they would look good by contrast, so it was a good deal.
I guess so.
Yeah. Anyway, so today we're going to be speaking with Associate Professor Christopher, and I was so engaged in the conversation that I didn't even ask for the pronunciation of your last name, but I'm guessing Muste. Musty. There we go.
I was going to say Musty. I was going to guess Musty.
Well, you see, you're a professional reader and button pusher, so you would know.
I push buttons and read. In case anybody ever asks, what does Peter do? He pushes buttons and reads.
Now, anyway. Mr. Musty is an associate professor at the University of Montana and specializes in domestic politics, including American politics, public opinion, and the news media.
Ooh, there you go. There we are, the news media.
So he's going to show us how to do our jobs. So if you could show Peter where the off button is on mic one, that'd be great.
The first thing is to differentiate between real media and what we do here.
Okay.
So,
well, thanks so much for coming and welcome to the program.
We just kind of
happy to be here.
Wander around in the dark and bump into things. Pretty much is what we do. So, but welcome to the show. It's a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
So tell us a little bit about the people call it the poli-sci. Well, what is a political science department at the University of Montana? What's it all about? What do you guys do every day?
Every day we go in and we teach our students what we have learned and what best political science research can tell us about what's going on in the world, in the United States, in other countries. We teach political theories. We test political theories. We do our own research. It's a very eclectic department. We have a number of strengths in domestic politics, studying the United States, but also, as you know, we've had Professor Karen Adams on before, international relations.
Super forecaster, right?
The super forecaster. And we have a number of other
excellent faculty. Do they call her that at mealtime?
Yeah. So we're sort of a small but very strong group of people with a set of diverse interests. And really we cover just a range of different countries, different approaches, different issue focuses, use different methodologies. It's a very eclectic but exciting department to be in.
Now, what are your students like? Because whenever I meet people that are going into political science,
yes,
it's people like me that have at least an armchair's political ideology. They have an intense appreciation for the art of politics.
Yes.
Is that, I mean, are these the up-and-coming future politicians? Is that a lot of what makes up your classroom?
Or is it just a bunch of apprentice wonks?
We get a mix of people. It's really fun to teach because you get a mix of students in the classroom. You get some students who've been into politics since grade school and went to a campaign rally with their parents and just decided, wow, this is the coolest thing. I'm going to learn about it. I'm going to be a wonk. We have students who sort of have wandered into the department. They took a bunch of courses as freshmen and they decided, that course was pretty interesting. I think I'll see what this major is about. We have people who are on a total career trajectory, students who are planning to go to law school or they want to do international development work or have some other specific goal in mind. So it's a good mix of students along with a mix of professors.
Why is it important for the average student who comes to the University of Montana at least have a working knowledge of the political structure and what you folks do?
Because if you want to, understand what's going on in the world, you need to understand politics and the political institutions and the political practices that lead to them.
Because the average person, if you ask him, what do you think about politics? I hate politics. They're a bunch of lions. So you can't trust them. They don't tell you the truth. They take your money and you got one hand in your pocket. And so that general prevailing deal is like, wow, politicians in the single digits in popularity.
Yes.
So,
But if you stop there, you're at their mercy.
Okay, all right.
And if you don't stop there and you learn something about political science and politics, then you have some better ideas about how can I change the system, how can I make things better, what's my place in it. You understand sometimes why politicians do the crazy things they do that I think we'll be talking about over the next hour and a half.
Oh, tell me. Okay, let's start with this, because I have been wanting to ask someone.
I can see. Ooh.
All right, we have 2 minutes, which is not long enough.
All right.
I could probably listen to Donald Trump talk for the next hour and a half, because he's hilarious.
Let's take our break.
Let's take our break. But before we get that, maybe after we get back from the break, we'll play a little clip from Donald Trump, and I'll have you explain why he's doing this, because it doesn't seem like he's doing it to win a presidential campaign.
Well, let me just say, I didn't say that we can explain everything.
Oh,
some things just defy explanation, right?
This is your singularity.
But we'll give it we'll give it a shot. We'll see what we can do.
We'll be right back. So this is going to be a fun hour and a half, folks. And by the way, we'd love to have your phone calls. The lines are open at 721-1290. And we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. And all right, now you're right in the middle of talking about Donald Trump. So
before we get into this this beautiful montage that I put together of Donald Trump talking about the best issues, the most important things in America today, I will refer to a Facebook post that I saw yesterday. Someone put up a picture of Trump in kind of the style of the Hope poster for President Obama, and with a powerful slogan, "We will overcome." But "come" was rephrased a little bit to "comb." We'll overcome. Anyway,
does he still look like he have a squirrel lost in his hair somewhere? Is that the deal?
You probably could lose a squirrel in there. I don't know. One of the mysteries that won't be solved. Maybe we'll ask a political science professor about that later.
Yes.
Well, let's go ahead and listen to the clip. These are Trump's own words. I have mashed together certain sections that I found most interesting to make a quicker clip here.
Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, hold on to your steering wheel.
I will be the greatest jobs president that God ever created. I tell you that. I'll bring back our jobs from China, from Mexico, from Japan, from so many places. I'll bring back our jobs and I'll bring back our money. Right now, think of this. We owe China $1.3 trillion. We owe Japan more than that. So they come in, they take our jobs, they take our money, and then they loan us back the money, and we pay them in interest. And then the dollar goes up, so their deal's even better. How stupid are our leaders? How stupid are these politicians to allow this to happen? Now Ford announces a few weeks ago that Ford is going to build a $2.5 billion car and truck and parts manufacturing plant in Mexico. $2.5 billion. It's going to be one of the largest in the world. Ford, good company. So I announced that I'm running for president. One of the early things I would do, probably before I even got in, and I wouldn't even use, I know the smartest negotiators in the world. I know the good ones, I know the bad ones, I know the overrated ones. You got a lot of them that are overrated. They're not good. They think they are. They get good stories because the newspapers get buffaloed. But they're not good. But I know the best negotiators in the world, and I'd put them one for each country. Believe me, folks, we will do very, very well. Very, very well. But I wouldn't even waste my time with this one. I would call up the head of Ford, who I know, if I was president. I'd say, congratulations. I understand that you're building a nice $2.5 billion car factory in Mexico, and that you're going to take your cars and sell them to the United States, zero tax, just flow them across the border. And you say to yourself, how does that help us, right? How does that help us? Where is that good? It's not. So I'd say, congratulations, that's the good news. Let me give you the bad news. Every car and every truck and every part manufactured in this plant that comes across the border We're going to charge you a 35% tax. Okay? And that tax is going to be paid simultaneously with the transaction. And that's it. The U.S. has become a dumping ground for everybody else's problems. Thank you. It's true. And these are the best and the finest. When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people. But I speak to border guards, and they tell us what we're getting. And it only makes common sense. It only makes common sense. They're sending us not the right people. It's coming from more than Mexico. It's coming from all over South and Latin America, and it's coming probably from the Middle East. But we don't know, because we have no protection and we have no competence. We don't know what's happening. And it's got to stop. And it's got to stop fast.
Well, there you go. There's a little bit of Donald Trump, who apparently was doing his the Four Fears speech, kind of a parallel to the Four Fights speech that Hillary Clinton gave earlier. Four Fears being ISIS, China, Mexico, and Charles Krauthammer. The worst possible entities on the planet, all at the edge of Trump's sword this week. Anyway, I would like you to explain this to me. Now, Trump has always run up to the entry gate of getting into the presidency and held a book or a show out for Americans to see and then go invest their money in and then walk away from actually campaigning.
Now he's in.
Now he has officially, quote, entered the race, although I don't believe he has registered paperwork in any of the entry states.
Okay, there you go.
And so I would like to ask you, what is this all about?
Well, John, I think you've hit the nail on the head right there. You know, the costs of entering a political campaign seriously are pretty high. You have to be willing to expose yourself to the public. You have to raise a lot of money. You have to put together a campaign organization. And Donald Trump has figured out that you don't actually have to do those things if you just announce. And so he's got the publicity. He's got our attention. He got the attention of Charles Krauthammer and a number of other pundits. But he probably will not actually run or be on the ballot in a number of states.
Now, I think he is pushing to get into that top 10 ranking so polling, that he can get into the debates.
Right. Absolutely. Well,
how can you be in the debates if you're not actually registered as a candidate?
Well, see, that's the stupid way that they've done the debates. They really should. I'll leave it up to them. That's their network. By the way, Republican candidates, if you want to go on a better network that will source out and suss out who should debate, you should come on Talkback. We'd be happy to come up with a better system. But anyway, I'm curious what you think of this top 10 polls, and I'm not even sure which polls they're going to use. Maybe you know.
I think it's a agglomeration of some of the top national polls by the national news media, New York Times, Washington Post, Fox, and some of the others. It's an attempt to solve a problem that arose during the 2012 campaign for the Republicans, which is so many candidates criticizing each other over a long period of time during the extended run-up to the primaries and the first parts of the primaries. So, sort of a circular firing squad, if you will.
Right.
And so the question was, how do we – I think they're now either – declared or close to declared almost 20 candidates on the Republican side.
Yeah.
And so, that's a large circular firing squad. And so to limit the number of people in that pool, Fox decided to sort of take a leadership role and say, we're going to look at the top 10 in the polls at a certain time, and then we're going to cut it off, and those 10 are going to get into the debates.
All right, let's get Susan on the line. We have about a minute or so before the break. Susan, you're on with Professor Muste. Go ahead.
Hi. Well, I can honestly say I agree with a lot of what your guest is saying, but my I used to be a Capitol reporter in Washington, D.C., and I still have a lot of contacts back east. The buzz on Capitol Hill is that Hillary Clinton is going to drop out of the presidential race, and she's going to claim because of health problems.
Not a chance.
And, yes, and...
Not a chance.
Oh, yeah. No, she's not going to make it.
Okay. You
there
say
are
so.
There are too many people that hate Hillary Clinton. And
well, those are two different, real quick, Susan, those are two different attacks here.
Okay,
so I want you to focus on the first one, because that's a big one. And I could buy someone leaving a campaign for health reasons. In fact, we saw that happen with the governor of Texas after his back injury and a pretty bad debate performance last time. But what evidence do you have that there is a health issue going on with Hillary Clinton?
Well, it's going to be an excuse to get out because of her lack of popularity. It's not because she has a health problem.
Now, she is polling like 52 to 16% or 52 to 20%. Well, that's not a lack of popularity, I guess is my point.
The base of the Democrats generally don't trust her. She's not popular. She is abrasive. I mean, there's so many things. Anyway, what I was going to say is that Donald Trump, bless his heart, is a breath of fresh air to me. I don't think he's going to get the nomination. My top
Fingers crossed.
My top person is Mark Rubio, followed by, I love Ben Carson, and I love Ted Cruz.
Now, how can you okay, I just need to understand this.
Hold on, we're up against, we're way past the break, so Susan, can you hang on?
Oh, sure.
Okay, hang on, we'll be right back. Stay with us, we'll be right back after this. And this is what happens when we go long in the segment. We only have just a minute or two before a hard break. So, Susan, real quick, if you could wrap up your comment.
This is my question first, Susan, before we run out of time.
Okay.
How do you put Marco Rubio and Donald Trump in your head together as equal playing field? When they talk about, for example, the issue with Mexico or the South or Latin America, however you want to phrase it, it's in such different terms. I mean, these are different spheres of conversation for these two guys.
I know, but
so how do you... Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it.
In answer to your question, because we only have a minute, I would vote and campaign for Marco Rubio, Ben Carson, and Ted Cruz, but I love Donald Trump for his passion and his ability to communicate with passion, just as Ronald Reagan did. And I don't think that Donald Trump has a chance in anything of getting the nomination. But thank goodness and thank God that he stepped out and said what other double-talking politicians, including the people that are leaders in the Republican Party, are unwilling to say.
Well, the reason for that,
the
reason for that, Susan, is that Donald Trump is quite literally a man who has nothing to lose and everything to gain.
Well, and what he said contradicted itself. He's like, I'm for free trade, and then 5 seconds later, 35% tax on anything that comes up from Mexico that Ford makes.
But I love the fact that he is a fantastic. I had the honor of interviewing him when he went through his first bankruptcy. And he went bankrupt several times.
Yeah, I know that.
And
4 times, actually.
I interviewed him right after his first bankruptcy. What an unbelievably jaw-dropping, passionate guy he is.
Susan, we're out of time. Thank you. But guess who else went bankrupt 4 times? Colonel Sanders. And of course, he did fairly well when he finally got his act together.
Well, he was a colonel. He had the discipline.
Okay, how do you argue with that? All right, we're going to take a little break. Of course, I'm a little chicken to talk about. All right, 721-1290 is our number. We're going to come right back.
What's your secret recipe to these jokes?
What can I tell you?
You got to know.
On a wing and a prayer, so to speak. We'll be right back. Okay, we are back, and we're talking politics. Go, John.
We got a Facebook post from Brian.
All right.
Going out there on a limb saying, stand with Rand. I would like to, if we could, just take a quick break. I know we have Catherine in the line, but if you could just kind of break out the Republican primary quickly. Where do you...
How much time do you
quickly, we have just about enough time for you to read the names of the members in the primary. I don't want you to do that.
Okay.
I want you to pick 5. 5 candidates that you think are most likely to have a shot at winning the Republican primary.
Okay.
Who would you put in that top 5 most likely category?
Walker, Huckabee, Bush.
Huckabee. That's a bit of a surprise to me.
Yeah. Rubio. I have to choose 5?
You have to choose 5.
Did I say Paul?
No, well, real quick.
Okay.
Because you've already picked 4.
Right.
You would put Rubio below Huckabee in the list?
Yes.
I highly question your abilities as a political science professor. I'd like you to make that case for
Welcome
me.
to my class. You can be a student. I get that too.
Go ahead. Make that case for me.
Rubio?
No. Huckabee over Rubio.
Okay. Huckabee is a former governor. Rubio is and Huckabee has also run before.
It's true. So, and he's run successfully in the early campaigns before.
Right. And he has a very strong national following, partly because he ran before. He was the one candidate to stick pretty much through the 2008 primaries.
He has his own show on Fox.
Has his own show, so he has a national audience. So he's better known nationally, and he has a very strong appeal to social conservatives in the Republican Party.
I think that's not true.
Okay.
Let's look at, real quick, historiography aside.
Right.
Polling in the early states so far.
Right.
Where does Huckabee beat Rubio in any state?
Huckabee doesn't have to beat Rubio.
He does. State. You have to.
No, you don't.
Okay.
No, so this is a war of attrition. We have 20 people running on the Republican side.
Fair enough.
And so the first probably all of the candidates, if they're at all smart, if they've studied the recent past, they have a plan to survive the first 2 months of the primaries, from January to the end of February, and if they're smart, into March.
Right.
And so Huckabee should have enough money that in those states where he's not going to do well early on, he can survive and hope that some of those other candidates are damaged, they make mistakes, they have gaffes, they don't meet expectations in Iowa or New Hampshire or South Carolina. So Huckabee's got broad support. And so he's going to be running a campaign where he's going to continually appeal to that wedge of the Republican Party that he thinks he has the strongest resonance with. And so if he can hold on to those and not have those voters defect to some of the other social conservative candidates, then he has a good chance of emerging as one of 2 or 3 alternatives after the first 2 months of the primaries and caucuses.
Okay. I think that if you were saying this 8 years ago, you would be a sage. No one predicted how well Huckabee would do except for a few pundits.
Right.
And I think maybe you're giving that too much credit.
Well, you only asked me to compare him to Rubio.
That's true. I've picked Rubio as the most likely candidate to win the primary. And I
mean the nomination?
In my top 3, to win the primary nomination.
Right.
I would put Walker and Bush in the top 3
okay.
tiers as well. I don't think Bush has a shot. I would put Rubio or Walker as most likely.
Really?
Yeah.
Over Bush.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Let's get to the phones. All right, Catherine, you're on with Professor Muste. Go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning.
I have kind of two complex questions. Okay. One of the definitions of politics is competition between competing interest groups or individuals for power and leadership. For quite a while, business, economics, and religion, and I'm using religion as a term denoting cultural and social folkways and mores, have become inextricably entwined with the art of governance. First, do you think that it is a net good or net bad that politics has permeated every aspect of life in this country specifically? 2, do you fold these other fields of study, such as business, economics, and religion, and sociology, etc., into your classes because it becomes an encompassing whole? And 3, the third question is kind of...
Hold on, we got to get him an extra sheet of paper.
Go ahead.
Okay. On the Republican side, there's a great division that exists between the fiscal, economic, conservative, libertarian wing, if you will, and the social conservatives who think social conservative domestic issues are far important. Which do you think is going to win out and why?
Okay, thanks, Catherine. All right, and thanks so much for joining us here on Talkback today. No, go ahead. What do you think?
to try to answer briefly, so I'll take your second question first. Do I fold other fields of study into my teaching? And the answer is yes. I couldn't teach political science without incorporating history, psychology, sociology, anthropology, economics. There's just political science and the study of politics is where this all comes together. You can't really understand what's happening in government without understanding what's happening in the economy, the social groups that people feel close to, the psychology of people, the histories that people bring to the table when they're talking about political issues. So yes, any good political scientist brings all those things to the table when they're teaching. The first question was really about what Madison would have called pluralism, the idea that one way to think about politics and to both intellectually but also to structure a political system is to think about politics as the competition of groups. And so a lot of our political system is set up acknowledging that there's going to be a lot of competition between different groups and to try to figure out how to manage that in a way that facilitates compromise, gradual policy change, but not radical or substantial or fast policy change.
It's adversarial, like our justice system in many ways.
It is.
But a further part of that question that Catherine asked was, do you think it's good that everyday life has been so consumed with politics?
From a political science perspective, I don't know that it has. I think there are a lot of aspects of our lives that are, to some extent, distinct, and people carve out their own niches. I think it's more problematic or more disturbing to me to sort of follow with your question the extent that it has permeated a number of other institutions that formerly weren't quite as involved politically. So, for example, religion or social, social organizations that formerly were nonpartisan are getting drawn into partisan debates. Interest groups that thought that they could get what they wanted from the political system by working with both parties now are sometimes becoming more allied with certain parties. So I'd say to the extent that our society has become more politicized, I think it is not necessarily a good thing. I think it removes people from some of the sources of their emotional strength and community, but also does to some extent influence our politics in ways that aren't necessarily positive.
We're up against a break, and I know we have one aspect of Catherine's question that we haven't answered yet, the third one. So we're going to get to that. Try not to.
Politics might be everywhere, but it doesn't need to be in your coffee yet.
Yes.
Actually, I know there's free trade coffee out there. It's already there.
Drink with your left hand.
But you know what?
Right hand.
It's free. It's free. And you don't have to vote for me. All you have to do is call us at 721-1290 for your free cup of coffee from the Rocket Coffee Stand in the Garden City Garden Supply right across from the Eastgate Shopping Center. Also, you get a slab of toast and your choice of spread. First person to call wins the coffee, toast, and spread. 721-1290. 721-1290 is the number. Give us a call, and you win.
All right. Fun with names, ladies and gentlemen. Gebney won the coffee, so congratulations. There you go. All right. All that aside, now we wanted to get one more question from Catherine that she asked. So number 3, go ahead.
Number 3 was on the Republican side, there's a split between the fiscal conservative / libertarian wing of the party and the social conservative wing of the party, and which side is likely to prevail in the nomination. And historically, it looks like the sort of moderates in the party, I wouldn't say moderates really, but moderate conservatives in the party tend to win out. So
that's why, isn't that, but many people say
yes,
that's the reason why the Republicans keep losing elections, because they give too much away to the left and the Democrats trying to appeal to quote the independents.
Right.
They lose their own base. Their own base won't even come out to vote for them, and the other guy always wins.
Right. Except there's several flaws in that logic. One is you can't win without independents and people in the middle of the political spectrum. So you have to appeal to them on some basis. The second flaw is a simple historical flaw. If you go back to the last 30 years of presidential elections, the Republicans tended to win with candidates who were not that far to the right. Ronald Reagan was more conservative than most of his opponents. George Bush was not more conservative than most of his opponents. George W. Bush was not more conservative than most of his opponents. So the Republican Party, the 3 out of the 5 winning elections they've had in the last 30 years have been with moderate candidates, because they have to appeal not just to the base, which they do in the primary election, which is why that tends to pull the Republican nominees to the right. But in the general election, to win the presidency, you've got to appeal to the middle in American politics.
I think you're absolutely right about the middle. I think the best case for the case you're making happens to do with Romney. Romney actually had really good turnout for people that were self-professed conservatives. He wouldn't have got that turnout if he had, as the explanation was, pushed them away or caused them not to vote that election cycle. So you have more people coming out that say that they're conservative voting for you. The problem is pulling the middle, and that is the key to winning.
Okay, let's let we have folks waiting to get on. So, G. Anderson, you're on with Professor Muste. Go ahead.
Good morning, gentlemen. Question. What is the feeling as far as how the world perceives the political integrity of the United States today? It seems like in the news we see a lot of things. For instance, the Swedish being exempted from the Iranian sanctions and things like that. It seems like we're playing both ends to the middle, or it's. I'm not quite sure what I want to say.
So basically, are you asking? Let's see if I can clarify here. Are you asking the view of the world toward the status of America, or the shape of American politics as it stands right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's see if we, Professor, what do you think?
Well,
how are we viewed by the rest of the world right now?
That's a tough thing to say. I think, in general, the United States is viewed as, both very powerful, and that has both positive and negative connotations depending on which country you're in and how, international relations are going at a specific moment in time. But I think in general, our domestic politics are perceived as historically extremely messy, very complicated, difficult to follow. There are professors at virtually every university throughout the rest of the world whose job is to try to explain America to their students and to their countries.
It's fascinating to talk with people from other countries. I lived in Japan. I've had exchange students from Spain, et cetera, that I've spoken with. You really don't have a system. Well, I'm sure there's countries out there that are similarly volatile and engaged in the political debate, but there's very little that I've been able to see out there that's like what we have in America, where the public is actually engaged. Talk shows like what we have here basically are impossible in Japan.
The reason they can do that, the reason we can do that, is because we have the platform basically to stand on in which we don't shoot each other when we disagree, right? I mean, isn't that kind of what it's all about politically?
Well, in some countries there is, there are huge and long-standing political divisions that can turn violent, but actually there's not that much political violence in a lot of other countries. It's just a part of the political culture in the United States to debate and to, we sort of go back to the post-revolutionary ideal of the New England town hall meeting where, everybody gets together and they hash it out by talking to each other about these issues.
Well, I think a good example for people to understand this is look at the way that Canadians and Israelis do their politics. All of the groups and the organization and the cohesiveness is done by the party leadership after they're elected. That's how the government is formed. Whereas in America, all that happens before the government is formed. Before your candidate gets there, he has or she has to go out there and convince you to join their coalition. And so there's much more participation from the public in that sense, in that you're choosing sides, and it's very important that you do so.
And another aspect of that is certainly since the progressive era in the early 1900s and accelerating in the 1970s in the United States, more power over who gets nominated to run for elections has devolved from party leadership to the people. In the early 1900s, the constitutional amendment was passed requiring direct election of senators. Before that, in some states, the state legislature appointed senators. In the 1970s, both parties, starting with the Democrats and then the Republicans, reformed their nomination process so that the state party leaders, their role was sharply diminished. And who got that power? The people did, which is why we have the primary and caucus season coming up starting next January that's going to stretch for 6 months. And that is our completely arcane, bizarre, unusual process for nominating our presidential candidates.
Messy.
But we get to do it.
Yeah.
That's true.
So we're up against a break. You were going to make a point.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say the engagement of the public in the political process in America is one of the best things about America. It's one of the things I really like about this country. I also think it's one of the highlights of a two-party system. So anybody out there that's a third-party lover, give me a call and we can talk about that. 721-1290.
Dennis is waiting on the line. We're going to get you right after this break. And we also have 2 lines open. It's 721-1290. And again, as John said, we'd love to hear from you. Hey, it's the Wednesday edition of Talkback, and we are doing what we do best around here, and that's talking politics. Dennis, we'll get to you in just a moment, but we have a Facebook comment.
Real quick, Matt throws in his top 5 for the Republican primaries. He says Cruz, Paul, Fiorina, Walker, and Rubio. And he says most likely to win the nomination is Cruz. Maybe. I don't see it, but maybe.
So let's ask the professor if we were to put you on the spot, and the ones that are declared right now.
Right.
So if you could just
you never got your 5th one. Would it be Cruz?
I thought I did get 5. Walker, Rubio, Huckabee, Paul, and Bush.
Yeah, he did.
Paul. I didn't hear Paul.
He put Paul in the end, yeah.
I think I did.
So if you were to pick now, who would it be?
Right now?
Yeah.
Based on momentum, I would say Walker.
Okay.
Because Bush has been having some problems, even though he had his big announcement this week.
I will say,
yes,
and as you know, I'm not. I don't think he'll win the primary. But his after that speech, if anybody actually listened to it, he went up in my estimation as a campaigner.
Yeah.
So I will give them that.
I mean, if I had to choose, I would say Bush is likely to win the nomination. He's got too many fundamentals going his way, and so he's the candidate who's likely to
Will he have the most money?
Not just money. He does have the most money right now, and I think he'll continue to be able to raise money. He's got, essentially 2 relatives who've been very successful in the past at raising record amounts of money.
And don't think they won't just campaign for him either.
No, and don't think he doesn't have a few dollars of his own socked away. But seriously, he's well known. He is fairly popular. He's got both some strengths within the Republican Party and some weaknesses, but he's also got some appeal in the general election on some issues like immigration reform, which is sort of a third rail in the Republican Party to some candidates, which is going to cause them some problems in the nomination. But I think over time, more moderate and sort of mainstream conservative Republicans will gravitate toward him.
It will be funny to watch a campaign where all the bumper stickers are first names. Hillary and Jeb don't want to use their last names.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let's get Dennis on the line. We'll use your first name too, Dennis. How are you?
Okay, I'm doing fine.
What's up?
Well, I'm going to change the subject for just a minute here. This call is basically for you, Peter.
Oh, I'm ready.
Yesterday, we had business down in Thompson Falls, South Creek, and about 2:30 in the afternoon, one of our trips through Thompson Falls, we're heading west, and I look up by the Cenex plant there. There's about 9 or 10 kids all in a cluster walking along, and they ranged, I would say, from 6 to about 12, boys, girls, fishing poles. Some of them were barefoot, and there wasn't a cell phone in the bunch, and they were giggling and laughing and skipping and hopping. And my wife said, "There's a scene from Mayberry," and I said, "No, it's Spanky and our gang. It's something you don't see much anymore."
How about that?
Yeah, parents letting their kids roam wild. It was one big part of my childhood, that's for sure.
That's Americana right there.
Yeah. So I thought you'd appreciate that.
Well, I sure appreciate it. Thanks for your call.
Okay.
All right, great. All right, so why not? JR, good morning. You're on Talkback. Hi.
Hi.
What's on your mind?
Barack Obama hired lawyers and spent tons of money to seal all of his records, high school records and the college records, to 3 different colleges. And I don't think it's because he had bad grades. And I think he was born in Hawaii. So the reason I think he did it is because he registered as a foreign student.
He did what?
Do you think the reason why he didn't want to disclose his high school
I see. Okay.
or his university paperwork?
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, so he had all of his college records sealed, and the only reason I can think of is he registered as a foreign student so he could get in easier and get it, not pay any money.
Well, there's another good reason. Just tactically, to have other people use that as like their biggest trump card against you, and I said Trump on purpose.
Yeah.
The reason, having that out there only helped him. I mean, all this flack back. One of the really brilliant things, I think it should come back to bite her really hard. The Clinton campaign actually started this whole mess with Barack Obama not being an American, and that should come back to bite them in this next campaign. Because as far as dirty politics goes, digging up dirt, Marco Rubio, one of the leading producers of cocaine in the world, as long as you include him with some South American countries. I mean, basically the New York Times piece where they together, Marco and his wife have 17 traffic violations when he only had 4. Taken together, Marco Rubio and the devil have led the world into hell.
Had his college records sealed any other candidate in history, and why would you? Unless there was something you didn't want people to see.
Well, listen, you're feeding back, so we're going to ask our professor if you could. Is there any reason why he did what he did?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Or
is it a who cares deal?
I think it's sort of a who cares deal. I mean, I think most of his college record is out there. We know that he passed difficult courses at both the colleges he attended.
He passed the bar.
Right, he passed the bar.
He became a
got into Harvard Law School.
Professor of Constitutional Studies, right?
Right, at the University of Chicago Law School, which is an amazing law school.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think his academic credentials are at question. So, as your caller was saying, maybe it's something else. I mean, frankly, I'd just be totally speculating if I get
Hillary's gotten in trouble for some of her senior papers and final work. I mean, there's very possible something like that in Barack Obama's background.
Right, it could be.
I mean, if you look at the stuff that he was into in that part of his life, he's self-confessed most of it.
But, often those things don't appear on the official records of a student. So, for example, we have FERPA, which is now something that protects the student privacy in the United States.
Usually your final paper would. If it was part of your degree.
If you wrote a dissertation or a thesis as an undergraduate, at least the title would be on the record.
John Walsh.
Yep, John Walsh, famous producer
of graduate school.
When we come back, well, it was a war college. Right? When we come back, I want to ask you about Hillary Clinton.
Okay.
All right, because we've already had Susan discuss her. She thinks that Mrs. Clinton is going to drop out. I have maintained since, it's been at least a year.
Oh, yeah, you're sure she's going to win. I think she's in no wise tired.
Okay.
And she's going to go on.
I honestly believe that as things go on, she will be the next president of the United States. All right?
Okay.
I don't want that to happen, but as I look forward, as I cast forward and look at America as it stands right now, with the amount of people that are on federal assistance and the amount of people that are on food stamps and the amount of people that are on some kind of government assistance, that Hillary Clinton will say, I will be the only one who will help you to hold on to that. Whereas these nasty Republicans are going to take it away from you and leave you to sleep under the bridge and you'll starve and all that. I really believe it's going to come down to that. I want to find out what you think, or is that just too simplistic?
Okay.
We'll be right back.
Very good.
By the way, we have lines ringing. We have 2 lines open at 721-1290. We'll be right back. Oh, yeah. 721-1290 is the number. That's John King. I'm Peter Christian. Whew. Joining us in the studio, Professor Muste. We really appreciate you being with us.
Happy to be here.
And now, before we get to Walt, if you'll hang on just a minute. He's used to waiting.
He's a CPA. He likes this stuff.
That's right. So let's talk about Hillary Clinton.
Okay.
Because she is the presumptive Democratic candidate.
Yes.
Because there really isn't another serious challenger yet. Okay.
No.
So
I would say that more and more like I'm sorry, I can't remember his name right now.
Sanders.
Thank you.
Yeah, Bernie?
Bernie Sanders is looking more and more like a real politician.
He's a clown.
Well, the problem is he did win in New Hampshire in a recent poll, which surprised everybody, and he didn't even try.
Okay.
He is looking like more of a real politician, but he'll never win the nomination.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. So Hillary Clinton, let's say she becomes the nominee.
Yep.
She runs against whoever.
Yep.
So is she going to win?
The fundamentals are against her.
Now, why do you say that? That intrigues me.
Not entirely, but to some extent. So the economy's growing, unemployment is down, but not as much as a Democratic nominee would hope. That's partly because a lot of people figure into their calculation of who they're going to vote for how things are going in the country and how things have gone in the last 4 years.
Well, you're walking a narrow tightrope, though. If you're a Democrat and when you're going to succeed another Democrat, you want it to be bad, but not too bad.
No, you don't want it to be bad. You want people to say, wow, things are going great. Those Democrats, I have no idea what they did, but when that Democrat was in the White House, that guy, things were going well. My business was going well. My kids were, getting through college easily. They were finding jobs after college. So, unless the economy either tanks in the next, 18 months till the election, or, miraculously goes great, Hillary is going to face a situation where the economy's sort of going okay. We're not probably in any major wars. U.S. military personnel aren't engaged in heavy fighting overseas with lots of loss of life. So some of the fundamentals will sort of be okay for someone running as the nominee of the incumbent party. But there's also the fatigue factor. And one of the other big things that people think about is, what about the president? What do we think about the president? What do we think about the guy in office? If I'd been John McCain in 2008, I don't know what I would have done. I don't think he had a chance because President Bush at that point was extremely unpopular. So if President Obama, whose favorability ratings are about 42% positive, 50% negative right now, if he can flip that and get it to 50-42, I'd say Hillary has a pretty good chance of winning. But people are kind of reluctant to give a party a third term in a row. The last time that happened was George W. Bush, and the last time before that was Franklin Roosevelt and Harry Truman.
Yeah, you make a really good point.
Another Roosevelt died.
Roosevelt died in office, and Truman, as his vice president, then ran and won.
Another thing that I think people will do is they will compare and contrast the Democrats against each other. And this usually hurts the person that comes out on the bottom end the most, either historically perspective or in the next election. For example, if you compare and contrast Bill Clinton with Al Gore, who is the better politician? Well, clearly this guy is no Bill Clinton, right? I mean, he doesn't speak like Bill Clinton. He doesn't have the enthusiasm of Bill Clinton. He doesn't rouse a crowd like Bill Clinton, and he doesn't have a plan like Bill Clinton.
Doesn't rouse other things like Bill Clinton.
Well, apparently he does have a very good love life, okay? I think the problem that Hillary Clinton has, it's one that she's already facing in the polls right now, is that people do not trust her. Mm-hmm. Personally, I don't think they have a reason to trust her, but you can have it as you will. I don't personally trust her. But, or think necessarily that she might care about them. And that is the leading factor. And I think the thing that people forget about American politics, it really matters to American people whether or not they think you care about them. This is the big flaw for Romney, in my opinion. When it came to the exit polls, this is what people ask people after they leave the polling booth. All these big categories, what's most important to you? It's important to me that the economy goes up. It's important to me that the foreign policy is taken care of. It's important to me. One of the big things that people said was very important to them was that the president cares about them. And when it came to that question, that was the only one of the top four categories that Obama won, was that the president seemed to care about them. He beat Romney in that category. And even though that was the only question he won, he ran away with he didn't really run away, but he won the election by a fair margin.
8 points.
And on that count, when it comes to comparing Obama to Hillary, she does not have that. Okay. And if she can't regather what Obama lost in the other three categories, I don't think she has a chance.
Let me just say from the perspective quickly of political science that those kinds of judgments that people make and the responses to those questions like, do you feel the candidate cares about you? A lot of those are actually subtly driven by their perspective, their perceptions of whether the economy is going well and whether what the candidate has said in the election makes them think that they're being spoken to.
So there's a lot of ingredients in that question.
There are a lot of ingredients in that judgment. And, Bill Clinton was very good at retail politics and, looking people directly in the face and shaking their hand. Hillary isn't so good at that, but sometimes
she hasn't done it yet. So.
But sometimes when she does do her more populist speeches, and you can see this in 2008, she can connect with her audience, and so I think she has potential there that maybe is going to be a little tougher haul for Jeb Bush.
I am going to play this cut. This is from Hillary's reboot campaign, which I will say did better than her reboot with Russia. But we're listening to this. If you're enthused by this speech, you give us a call, 721-1290.
Okay, well, we'll do that when we come back. Walt and Jerry, both, I promised to get you guys on. We will in just a moment. We're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. I want to get right back to the phones, I promised, and a little bit of bartering going on here. Professor Muste, Walt wants to trade advice with you, political for financial. What do you think?
Oh, it's a heck of a deal. How are you guys?
So what's on your mind, sir?
Well, a couple of things. First, the statement. I thought you guys were out to lunch, and then the professor brought you back to reality by, you talk about a lot of minutia, and they're all good points, but the big thing is, as he points out, the fundamentals are kind of against Hillary, only from the standpoint, I think the independents and the free thinkers out in the voting public say, 1-2 terms of this is enough, let's switch parties again, and I just think that that's going to rule the day again, in spite of all the details. But the real reason I think you're out to lunch is that Jeb Bush may have money and Hillary may be able to raise a lot of money, but they're nothing compared to what the Trumpsters just bringing to the table.
Wait, are you saying that Trump is going to win?
No, I'm saying he's going to bring money to the table, and if anything, he's going to bring a lively debate.
So are you saying that some of the Republican candidates may try to kowtow to Mr. Trump to take advantage of some of his fundraising?
Well, I think they'll piggyback on him.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't think, if I was a Republican candidate, I would walk away from Trump as far as I could.
Well, it will be interesting to see if he can get into the top 10 in the polls, because otherwise, if he doesn't get into the debates, then he's got to spend money on advertising to reach the public.
Well, and here's the interesting thing. Trump has been around in politics, quote unquote, for a long time, and he doesn't, on a regular basis, donate large amounts of cash to particular campaigns. This is a guy that's out there for himself.
Yeah, he teases, but he doesn't deliver.
And this is National Review, okay? This is an article in National Review, probably
Thanks,
to
Walt.
the left, right, of Mother Earth News. I'm just joking. This is a conservative, very conservative news magazine. Their headline for this story, Witless Ape Rides Escalator, Donald Trump is in the race. Wow. I'm just going to read the first paragraph because I couldn't stop laughing. Donald Trump may be the man America needs. Having been through 4 bankruptcies, the ridiculous buffoon with the worst taste since Caligula is uniquely positioned to lead the most indebted organization in the history of the human race. And then they go on to discuss his 4 bankruptcies, etc.
So,
this is a Republican, a conservative magazine. Just think about what the opposition would be saying.
So with that, should we play the Hillary reboot? Here we go. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen.
Hillary, in her own words, this is, again, another montage. I've kind of cut together some pieces that I thought were interesting.
It was like 4 hours long, so here we go.
Americans have come too far to see our progress ripped away. Now, there may be some new voices in the presidential Republican choir, but they're all singing the same old song. A song called Yesterday. You know the one. All our troubles look as though they're here to stay. And we need a place to hide away. They believe in yesterday. And you're lucky I didn't try singing that, too, I'll tell you. These Republicans trip over themselves, promising lower taxes for the wealthy and fewer rules for the biggest corporations, without regard for how that will make income inequality even worse. We've heard this tune before, and we know how it turns out. Ask many of these candidates about climate change, one of the defining threats of our time. And they'll say, I'm not a scientist. Well, then why don't they start listening to those who are? They pledge to wipe out tough rules on Wall Street rather than rein in the banks that are still too risky, courting future failures in a case that can only be considered mass amnesia. They want to take away health insurance from more than 16 million Americans without any credible alternative. They shame and blame women rather than respect our right to make our own reproductive health decisions. They want to put immigrants who work hard and pay taxes at risk of deportation, and they turn their backs on gay people who love each other. Fundamentally, they reject what it takes to build an inclusive economy. It takes an inclusive society.
Okay, there we go. And we're up against a break, so we have a 1-minute timeout. So we have Jerry and Matt and one other person, and we're going to be rocking right up until the top of the hour, so we'll be right back. Hey, we're back on Talkback, and real quickly, now you want to say a quick word about
I just wanted to say what I chose about that speech. So I chose those cuts. You'll notice the first cut where she was kind of halting in between each word, and then in the second part, she kind of ramps up and gets into a little bit of a groove. Most of the 50-minute speech was not like the second part. That was basically the highlight of fluid speaking for Hillary Clinton when she was lambasting the Republicans there. And for me, watching the speech, if you actually watch the whole 45 minutes and you can get to that part, it's okay. But most of it was not like that. And that seems it showed me a lack of genuineness out of her. And maybe other people read it in different ways. But if you are reading a speech and are not connecting with the words yourself, I have a hard time buying in to your
especially since
cells.
It's apparent you didn't write it. So, all right, let's get Jerry on the line. Jerry, whoops, sorry, hold on, step on this phone.
Most candidates.
Jerry, good morning. You're on Talkback. Go ahead.
Good morning. I'd like to get the professor's take on the media, and how did we get to the point where it's just acceptable or it's just expected now that the Republican would just get destroyed in the media and the Democrats get a pass? How did we get to that point?
Okay, let's ask him. So what do you think?
Well, the best research in this area indicates that, in fact, it isn't all one-sided, and that if you look at, even if you just take what some people would call the mainstream media, that actually from election to election, there are certain patterns that appear. One is that the incumbent tends to be more positively covered in the news media than the challenger. So the challenger has sort of an
George W. Bush.
Well, actually,
really? Come on,
if you look in the 2004 election, the Bush and Kerry coverage in the news media, there was extremely negative coverage of Kerry, and that's one of the reasons why he went from
because he got swift voted.
And he got swift voted, but other aspects of the campaign, he was roundly criticized in the mainstream media. The other rule of thumb is that in addition to incumbents having an advantage, it's hard to predict who has an advantage. So there's no general greater positivity towards the Democratic versus Republican presidential nominee. It varies a lot based on the individual conditions in the campaign, and there tends to be a lot of focus on gotcha and who's ahead and who's behind. So if you are George Bush in the 2000 election, you actually get more positive coverage than Al Gore, because Al Gore, as the incumbent vice president, is expected to have an easier time of winning. And when George Bush does well in the polls, he gets a lot of very positive coverage. So there's not, overall, at least in presidential elections, there's not a strong partisan bias in either direction on the part of the overall media, whereas some specific news outlets do have, as you might expect, some partisan bias.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you take it down to the news organizations individually, then you have it. And I think if you take it down even further to the journalists individually, you definitely have a bias.
To some extent. But there's still a norm within...
Can I highlight a recent scenario?
Sure.
Okay, so just this week, Jeb Bush did his campaign.
Right.
He was like 30 minutes late for this big speech, right? This is a big deal, right? You expect the guy to be on time. Anyway, I thought it was interesting. They covered this, because they had nothing else to talk about. They were all timed to go on. And they talked about how late he was. And it's 20 minutes. We can't believe it. No. This is a case of I think of ineptitude on Bush's part, and it was a big downturn for him. Mm-hmm. However, President Obama is late for almost every single speech he's given. I am not joking. almost every single speech. It doesn't matter if it's a daily press appearance.
We are waiting for the president right now.
Exactly. And this very rarely gets highlighted.
Right.
We are waiting for the president.
So I maybe this goes back to favoring the incumbent.
We are still waiting for the president.
Once you're a president in office, you're expected to be late. So I think that's part of it. But it'll be interesting to see
attending
if
to national affairs.
and it's also very dangerous. You know, if Jeb Bush has scheduled his announcement for, say, 1 o'clock and he shows up at 1:30, that's really not just a sign of potentially incompetence. It's a sign that he's giving the media 30 minutes to fill, and the thing that's foremost in their minds is, where's this guy? He said he was going to be here. Our time is valuable. He's wasting our time. He's wasting our listeners' time. Are they going to have a positive attitude towards Jeb Bush? No.
All right. Let's try to get one more call in. We have 1 minute. Matt, go ahead. What's on your mind?
Peter, I'm appalled by your lack of faith in the American people. That cardboard cutout of a candidate who has a song, and it's yesterday. Come on. She couldn't get elected the dog catcher in Nome, Alaska.
Okay.
By the way, I think she was the only one that was alive when yesterday was written.
Okay,
I'm serious. She was. I don't believe Marco Rubio was born until after that song was written.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Okay.
Also, Marco Rubio has been using yesterday as his campaign theme, and his commercial that dropped right after she said that was his comments about how she is the candidate of yesterday, which were delivered smoothly. So the contrast was pretty funny for me.
Okay, so in the 1 minute that we have remaining, so if you could wrap things up for us as we look toward the presidential election, how do you think it's going to go?
It's going to be a long, painful slog. No, seriously, the
slog.
It's 6 months, 7 months before the first primary and caucuses in Iowa and New Hampshire, and then we have 6 months of the primary season to choose the nominees. It's a war of attrition, especially on the Republican side. On the Democratic side, it's hard to see what will prevent Hillary Clinton from winning the nomination. On the Republican side, given their national renown and strength, and one other fact that they're former governors, I would say Jeb Bush and Scott Walker have the inside track. Okay. It's going to be tough for the other candidates to do more than hang in, partly because the Republican Party is strongly split, as one of our earlier callers mentioned. There's the social conservative moderate, there's the economic conservative moderate.
Yeah, we're almost out of time. I'm sorry. We have a hard break coming up. So
tomorrow we hope to speak with Superintendent Mark Thane.
Yes,
from Missoula County Public Schools.
Took over for Dr. Alex Apostle. Mark Thane recently confirmed as the new superintendent of the School District 1. He'll be with us either on the phone or in the studio, and we hope to get to know him better. So thanks for joining us on this beautiful day. We will see you tomorrow at 6 for Montana Morning.